Hi, I'm Jude from Headphone.org. Today on Headphone TV, we're going to take a look at this. It's called the Prime, and it's a DAC and headphone amp combo from legendary English audio company Meridian. I think it's fair to say that here on Headphone, our audience on average is at least somewhat younger than your typical audiophile, so some of you may not be familiar with Meridian. But for those of you who fancy yourselves veteran audiophiles, I think if we were going to play an audio brand word association game where I said something and you had to say in response the first audio brand that came to mind, and I said digital audio, I think many of you, maybe even most of you, would say Meridian, and understandably so. Meridian's a company that for the last, nearly 40 years now, they've not only made fantastic audio gear, some of it legendary, they've also innovated a great deal. And I don't just mean obscure innovations that you've never heard of or that you're not likely to interface with, though I'm sure there are also many of those. I'm talking about big landmark innovations that I'm sure you've heard of, some of which you probably interface with quite regularly even today. Some examples. In 1983, Meridian made the first audiophile CD player, the Meridian MCD. They released the first audiophile transport DAC combo, the first digital active loudspeaker, the first DSP active loudspeaker, the first digital surround processor. They also developed MLP lossless decoding, which was mandated for use in DVD audio, and then later Blu-ray. So again, I'm sure you interface with this stuff. MLP stands for Meridian Lossless Packing, by the way. Now again, these are just some of Meridian's innovations, but I think you get the point that it's not just their products that have made Meridian and its founders Bob Stewart and Alan Boothroyd held in such high regard, it's also their innovations that have contributed substantially to their renown. Early in 2013, Meridian introduced this, the Meridian Explorer. The Explorer is a USB-powered, ultra-compact, high-res capable USB DAC amp combo. That's a mouthful. As a longtime Meridian fan and gear owner, I was super excited to see them entering the personal audio, headphone audio space with the Explorer. Now, this is one of my favorites of these types of ultra-portable USB devices, yes. And when I listen to it, I enjoy the heck out of it, but it doesn't scream Meridian to me when I hear it. In other words, the Explorer is an awesome ultra-portable USB-powered, high-res capable DAC amp combo, but to my ears, it doesn't deliver what I've come to expect from Meridian's high-end desktop gear, which is probably an unreasonable expectation anyway, coming from something the size of a partially smoked cigar. From the Explorer, let's fast forward to late 2013 when Meridian introduced the Prime. This is the Prime here, and to me it represents Meridian's first headphone audio-centric component that brings to bear the full Meridian sound and experience. When I listen to it, I'm brought back to the first time I heard the legendary 50824 CD player by Meridian that I ended up owning a long time ago and that I regret having since gotten rid of. And also the best of the Meridian G series. It also reminds me even of some of the magic of Meridian's flagship 800 series components. In fact, the Prime also reminds me of another piece of English audio wizardry that's taking the audio world by storm right now, the Chord Electronics Hugo. Some consider the Hugo the best sounding DAC from Chord Electronics, despite the fact that it's portable and far less expensive than many of its siblings. Now, while I won't go so far as to say that the Prime threatens the flagship Meridian 808 V5, it borrows enough from it to bring some of Meridian's best work to the relatively compact and much more affordable Prime. And also, like Chord's Hugo, the Meridian Prime is not built around an off-the-shelf DAC chip solution, but rather, like its other Meridian desktop siblings, it's comprised largely of computationally intensive custom DSP code for apodizing, upsampling, filtering, match dither, and other functions. This abundance of bespoke processing has been among the hallmarks of Meridian's best gear, and the Prime is certainly of that tradition. Also, like Meridian's other top gear, the Prime is housed in a double-skin chassis, essentially a metal chassis within another metal chassis for lower noise, which is certainly appreciated for headphone listening. And the Prime's chassis looks like Meridian's other top components, albeit in miniature. If you look inside the Prime, you'll find almost all of its active audio bits and pieces located towards the rear to keep the active components close to the connectors to minimize signal path length. The volume knob, which looks a lot like the one you'd find on Meridian's classic M80 and F80, is coupled to the rear-mounted Alps potentiometer via a flexible shaft to minimize microphonics from handling. These are just a few examples of Meridian's attention to detail with the Prime. As far as functionality goes, the Meridian Prime offers only one digital input, USB, and it is an async mode USB implementation, by the way. The Prime does also have two analog stereo line inputs, one via RCA jacks and the other via a stereo mini jack. With its RCA stereo preamp output, the Prime can then serve as a nice little desktop preamp too. Of course, the Meridian Prime also has headphone outputs, 3 of them in fact. 2 of the headphone outputs are 1/4-inch jacks, both with rated output impedance of around 1/10 of an ohm, so very low output impedance. There's also a single mini jack headphone output, and that also has a low output impedance, but slightly higher than the other 2 at 2.2 ohms. Now, all outputs, the preamp and the headphone outputs, are active during use. However, a single button press will put the Prime in headphone-only mode, and it'll mute the preamp outputs. The Meridian Prime also has a crossfeed circuit that Meridian calls Analog Spatial Processing, or ASP. If you're not familiar with crossfeed, here's what it is in a very quick, dumbed-down nutshell. When you're listening to music, most of the recordings we listen to were intended really for loudspeakers. And when you listen to loudspeakers, your right ear still hears the left loudspeaker, and your left ear still hears the right loudspeaker. That's called crossfeed. But when you listen with headphones, the right ear only hears the right channel, and the left ear only hears the left channel, and that can make for unusual or unnatural soundstage, certainly with some recordings. What a crossfeed circuit serves to do is to restore the crossfeed that you get with loudspeakers. The Meridian Prime's crossfeed has 3 settings: off, of course, setting 1 and setting 2, with setting 2 having a more pronounced effect than setting 1. I found myself preferring setting 1 personally when I do feel the need for crossfeed. It sounds more natural to me. And I do like having crossfeed available for certain recordings. Meridian claims that their crossfeed can produce out-of-head imaging, by the way, but I'd say that's a bit of a stretch. The Meridian Prime's crossfeed is as effective as other crossfeed circuits I've used at minimizing the strange, unnatural soundstage effects of recordings, especially those that feature extreme left-right stereo panning, like think of old stereo Beatles recordings. But as far as taking it out of head, yeah, that's a bit of a stretch, though. The Prime's headphone amp section delivers a maximum output of 250 milliwatts, so it has the juice to power most headphones you'll come across. Now, this headphone here is the Hi-Fi Man HE6, and it's probably the single most difficult to drive headphone I have here, and the Prime can drive it to moderate levels and with pretty good sound. Does the Prime bend the Hi-Fi Man HE6 or the Abyss AB1266 to its will, the way the Schiit Audio Ragnarok, Hi-Fi Man EF6, or Ray Samuels Audio Darkstar can? No, of course not. Those are immensely powerful amps. But the Prime does a respectable job with these headphones, though. Another thing about the Prime that surprised me is its performance with Sennheiser's flagship HD800. Yes, the picky Sennheiser HD800. One of the most glorious headphones when it's found a great mate, and perhaps among the most unforgiving when it's paired with something it doesn't like. Fortunately, the HD800 is beautifully at ease with the Meridian Prime as a mate. Is it the best I've heard the HD800, though? Does it sound as well paired as it does with the Sennheiser HDVD 800, which was essentially made by Sennheiser for the HD800? Or how about something like that huge Frank Cooter amp back there? No, not quite. But an HD800 owner looking for a wonderful pairing that occupies less than a square foot of desk space? Yeah, you're not going to easily find a better candidate than the Meridian Prime. When you start getting into more reasonable headphone loads, though, probably most of the headphones you're likely to use, the Prime absolutely soars. Some of the many headphones I've found to pair fantastically with the Meridian Prime include the ones you see here, and certainly not limited to the ones you see here. But here's some examples. The Alpha Dog from Mr. Speakers, a very popular headphone on Headfire right now. The Sennheiser HD650, a legendary headphone, sounds fantastic with the Prime. The NAD Viso HP50, another popular headphone on Headfire right now, doing very well with the Prime, enjoying that. The AKG K812, a stunning headphone. This is AKG's flagship, and I absolutely love it. A wonderful pairing with the Prime. Now this is the Oppo PM1, kind of the rage on Headfire, and everybody's talking about the Oppo PM1. It's a fantastic new planar magnetic headphone from Oppo, and this is an outstanding partner for the Meridian Prime. If you're wondering what I think so far the best pairing I've heard with the Meridian Prime is, I'd have to give it to the Audeze LCDX. The Prime pairs well with all the Audezes, but it's, to me, simply magic with the LCDX. Even Audeze, I think, has used the Meridian Prime in its exhibits at shows because it's simply magic with the Audeze headphones, especially the X, absolute magic. Also, I want to mention that the Meridian Prime's amp circuit is quiet enough to drive my best in-ears beautifully. So I've been using it with my JH Audio Roxanne customs, my Ultimate Ears reference monitors, my Fidear MH334 customs, and the Sennheiser IE800 is also something I've been using with the Prime a lot lately. Now the Prime sound, signature Meridian. That custom-coded Meridian DAC feeds the Prime's amp section the ultra-revealing sound of an excellent DAC, but with an extra helping of inner detail and timbral richness that has become synonymous with Meridian. I've heard some of Meridian's best components described by many in the industry as digital gear that even die-hard analog enthusiasts can love, and the Prime to my ears is still another of their pieces that I think can be very fairly described that way. Now what's wonderful too is that with its preamp out, you've got a Meridian source component for all your other amps also, not just the built-in amp. And I've been enjoying it immensely as a DAC paired with the new Schiit Audio Ragnarok, a beast of an amp, and also a bunch of other amps that I have here too. Now I only have a couple of quibbles with the Prime. I wish Meridian would have added coaxial and optical digital inputs in addition to USB. Also, the Prime does not support DSD, and DSD support would have also been nice to have. There are, however, easy-to-use apps that convert DSD to PCM on the fly, which allow for converted playback of DSD files on the Meridian Prime. The Meridian Prime is priced at $2,000 with an included wall power supply. There's also an optional Prime power supply, that's the matching chassis you see underneath the Prime here, and that's priced at $1,250. This optional Meridian Prime power supply is a low-noise, high-current design based on the linear power supplies found in the $22,000 Meridian 808V5 flagship. Not only does the optional power supply deliver cleaner, quieter, more robust power to the Prime as a whole, but it also has a 5-volt USB supply with audio pass-through, and that allows the DAC to get clean power from this, the optional power supply, instead of from your computer. So, do I recommend the optional Prime power supply? Not if your budget is hard limited to $2,000. Because if you listen to the Prime with the optional power supply, you're going to almost certainly want it. If your budget has a hard stop at $2,000, just be happy with the Prime as it is because it's wonderful that way. However, if curiosity gets the best of you, be prepared to be $1,250 poorer. No, the optional Prime power supply won't turn it into an 808V5, but you'll certainly start to wonder how much more performance $22,000 could possibly buy you with that flagship Meridian. So if you get a chance, and especially if you're in the market, make sure to audition the Meridian Prime. It really is pure Meridian, and that's a very, very fantastic thing. Thanks for watching HeadFi TV. We'll see you next time.